All right, let's take you to this story now that we are tracking for you this afternoon. Of course, all eyes are on Gauteng Premier Panyaza today as he delivers his maiden state of the province address. And of course, our reporter Natasha Phiri is standing by and following the story for us. Natasha, thank you so much for your time and a very good afternoon to you. Of course, a lot, of expectations that will be expected from Panyaza, particularly also the state of municipalities in Gauteng, especially if you look at some of the big metros like Tshwane. Tell us what can we expect tonight?
Well, very good afternoon to you, United. Apologies for that. I'm struggling to hear you because of the band that was playing here, in the background. But of course, like you said, all eyes will be on the economic hub of the country, if not the SADC region. And this is as Premier Panyaza will be delivering his first maiden state of the province address. And I mean, key to this, he'll be focusing on 7 main tenets, some being economic recovery, the energy crisis, strengthening the fight against crime and corruption in the province, revitalizing the township economy and changing the living conditions of, South Africans who live in townships and in hostels. But I'm actually joined by, one of the members here in the Gauteng legislature of the IFP, the lead of the IFP here in the province, Thank you so much for joining me on SABC News. Your expectations, and especially because, there's this energy crisis that the country is facing. We just came out of an ESCOM briefing right now. We know that last week, the provincial governments had held an energy summit, and this is also coming on the backdrop of the energy crisis being labeled as a national disaster.
Well, the issue of energy is one of the very crises of our country. It's letting down our economy, it's destroying jobs, and it also discourages foreign investment. As a result, our social ills are growing almost every day, your unemployment, crime, and so forth. But we hope that the Premier will come up with a plan, as he promised in his briefing, that Gauteng will have we also need really to find alternatives to ESCOM. That is why the IFP is calling on the breaking of the monopoly of ESCOM in terms of getting electricity. Secondly, we think that the Premier will elaborate on his elevated priorities, your TISH, your townships, informal settlement and hostels. So we are waiting with bated breath that maybe he will elaborate on those issues to see. And also next week we hope that the MEC for Finance will therefore put money where their mouth is.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Bonkosi. I wanted to actually scoop Zikumalo there. The MEC, how are you, sir? We are live on SABC News MEC. You're the MEC of Kokta. Some may not know you. You were appointed as MEC last year. What are you looking forward to in this speech?
No, the first thing is what's going to be our contribution in ensuring that we have sustainable municipalities and stable municipalities, in particular as it relates to the coalitions. What is it that we are going to do to work together with the coalitions? And you will know I'm also responsible for eGov, the e-policing. There's a lot of detail that should come out there insofar as fighting crime is concerned in the province.
MEC Commander, you raised the issue of coalitions. And this has been a contentious issue. We saw what happened in the city of Tshwane, the city of Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni. Have you as an MEC met with the various mayors of these municipalities to actually find out what actually is happening and to ensure stability within our municipalities? Because at the end of the day, service delivery, people are suffering on the ground.
We convened a meeting of all mayors last year, December. Unfortunately, not all the mayors attended, but some sent their representatives, and we explained where we stand. The first thing that we requested was that irrespective of the fact that there's coalition government, we must act in the best interest of our people in the areas that we operate. So we should at all time ensure that the interest of the resident is taken into account. Secondly, that they must ensure that there is stability, and we made some proposal that part of it is, instead of rushing to a motion of no confidence, perhaps we should put in place a mediation a mechanism that allows for a conflict resolution, which mediation will be part of it. But that requires that as they enter into coalitions, there must be agreements, and those agreements must be written down so that when there's a conflict, we should know what happened, what caused it, and whether we can negotiate that out as it is. So what is the point that we're making? The point that we're making is that coalitions are with us and try to destroy them, because I think they can work in some instances. All that it requires that those who go into partnership as coalition partners must clearly define the purpose of their coalition.
Thank you so much, MEC of Gauteng, the province Zikhumalo. Of course, state of the province address here at the Johannesburg City Hall, and this as I toss over to
news just in is that the city of Tshwane has received a legal opinion stating that the first resignation from the mayor in the city of Tshwane still stands, and we understand that the executive there is no longer in place, and those who were in those positions, the various MMCs, have been requested to return those cars there. I've been in conversation with Action SA's Bongani Baloyi, who is calling this somewhat of a mess. He joins me now to speak to us about the city of Tshwane. Thank you so much for speaking to us. You've defined this as a mess.
Absolutely. It's a DA-caused mess where the mayor caught us all with our pens in our pockets and resigning sporadically. We would have been comfortable if we would be taken through a process where we would have advised them correctly how to manage an exit of government, because some of us are experienced. But the DA has caused this crisis. As we speak today, there's no executive in Tshwane. The mayor's first resignation is the one that is accepted after the speaker sought a legal opinion, and the speaker has corrected the public perception and informed the public that there's no longer an executive in Tshwane. And I mean, this is something that could have been avoided had the DA engaged us and sought advice from coalition partners.
Now, what is the way forward? I mean, given that, does the speaker still stand? And we saw in Ekurhuleni the councillors there invoking section 29(1)(a). Are you going to consider doing the same thing in the city of Tshwane to just ensure some form of stability? And do you expect the Premier today to speak to this?
Look, the Premier will be unable to deal with this. The Speaker, rightly so, would need to call a special council meeting for the sole purpose of electing a mayor of the city of Tshwane. And within the coalition space, we're having conversations with our partners now where they have to present an acceptable candidate to us. That has not happened yet. It will probably happen tomorrow. But we find ourselves in a difficult position where the coalition is unstable and actually causing instability in the metro.
Now, what can the Premier do in order to stabilize these municipalities which have been in the media for various motions of no confidence, and some are actually saying that this might be unstable,
It's quite important that the provincial government proposes legislation to manage and create a framework of coalition so you avoid this coalition instability and fluidity. It's not good for residents of Gauteng, and it's important for coalition partners to understand that they need to govern in the interest of the people and find workable solutions and consensus, and not shock and surprise each other when the mayor resigns on a Monday when we all have not been consulted.
Certainly. Now, we understand that, even though the Action SA has a number of seats in the different municipalities, City of Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, and so on. But your words, you've spoken quite harshly against the DA, and you said that this is a DA-created mess. Does that mean the coalition that then existed between Action SA and the Democratic Alliance has collapsed in all the regions?
No. The coalition has collapsed in Johannesburg. We are not in coalition in Ekurhuleni. And when we are saying it for the umpteenth time, the mayor of Ekurhuleni is useless and does not even qualify to be a ward committee member in the city of Ekurhuleni. That's why you're finding such a mess and instability. In Tshwane, there's still a coalition, but we need to find each other around the issue of the candidate in Tshwane. And the DA has to present an acceptable candidate to all of us for us to respond.
And are we going to see an action? Are you going to call for an Action SA candidate like you did in the city of Johannesburg, where we saw you fielding your own candidate?
Look, such a position has not been adopted at this stage, and we can only cross that bridge when we get there.
Okay. And then back to today's business, you do call on the Premier to somewhat come up with some legislation to govern all of these, but he's also expected to talk about other issues pertaining to crime and so on. And as a former mayor of the Mid-Val, you say some of the ideas that he's come up with are somewhat dated. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. We started implementing drone technology 4 years ago in Midvaal when I was still the mayor there. But it's good for the provincial government to follow the examples that I had set. I think they must look beyond that and consider how we build a strategy by coordinating, mobilizing all stakeholders to assist us in defeating crime and protecting infrastructure in Midvaal. So we expect the Premier to explain to us how he's going to get more boots on the ground, more infrastructure protected, and also engaging in technology, but equally how it's going to mobilize stakeholders to fight crime.
There are those who might say that, you're not represented in the legislature and would question your being here. Why are you here?
Well, I'm here as a guest of the Premier. He saw fit to extend the opportunity for us to be here. I think that demonstrates that a part of the Premier is someone who's mature, who appreciates democracy and multiple voices. And I think he sees that Action SA is able to persuade and influence the government, the program of government.
Okay, there you have it. That is Action SA's Bongani Baloyi talking to us about the Mayor of Tshwane's resignation, and also just talking about the state of the province address that we are expecting to take place at 5 this afternoon. It's back to you in studio.
Thank you so much. Our reporters in Mbalenhle Mthethwa there and Natasha Phiri just giving us a preview of what to expect at the State of the Province address.